Hello, today we're going to have a look at sentences, and I'd like you to think about the following questions. What is a phrase? What is a clause? What is a simple sentence, compound sentence and complex sentence? So, what is a phrase? What do you think the following have in common? In the drawer, at dinner time, from the shop, in a rush, very quickly, the unusually small, down the hill, the long hard drive. That's right, they are a group of related words without a subject or a verb. Now there are different types of phrases, but in order to make a sentence out of a phrase, you will need a subject and verb. Let's have a look at down the hill. If we add a subject and a verb to the phrase down the hill, we make a simple sentence. Sally skipped down the hill. Now let's look at clauses. What do the following words have in common? That's right, these groups of words contain a subject and a verb, but they don't always make sense. So all the subjects have been highlighted in red and the verbs have been highlighted in green. However, not all the clauses make sense. For example, he ran into. The question is, who did he or what did he run into? This is an incomplete thought. Whereas they gathered around the tree is a complete thought. It makes sense. In order to make he ran into a complete thought, we need to have an object. So we could say he ran into the street. That now is a complete sentence. It is a complete thought. There are two types of clauses. A main clause, which is your complete thought with your subject and your verb. And then you have a subordinate clause where you've got your subject and your verb, however it doesn't make sense. If I came up to you and said when the sun came out, you would ask what happened next. The subordinate clause is dependent on the main clause for its meaning. So now this sentence, there is the main clause and then we have a subordinate clause, and together we have a sentence. So can you now answer this question? What is a simple sentence? Well, actually it's a main clause. You will have a subject and you will have a verb and it will make a complete thought. So have a look at the following sentences and decide which ones are complete thoughts, therefore a simple sentence with one verb and one subject. Okay then, so question 1, we left. We have the subject and we have a verb and it makes sense. So this is a simple sentence. Under the tree is missing a subject and a verb, therefore it is just a phrase. Here we have all the men. This is a subject, but there is no verb. And question 4, Jack is the subject, road is the verb, and it is a complete thought, so this is a simple sentence. How did you get on? Next, we're going to have a look at compound sentences. Compound sentences are when two main clauses, your simple sentences, are joined together with one of these little conjunctions, which can be remembered by the acronym FANBOYS. They're also called coordinating conjunctions. They stand for and, nor, but, or, yet, and so. For provides a reason for the previous clause. It's a little bit like since. I will take her with me. Get rid of the full stop. For she is my only daughter. It's a bit like saying I will take her with me since she is my only daughter. And a very common coordinating conjunction when one idea follows on from another. The weather was terrible. Get rid of the full stop. And the beaches were dirty. Sometimes you will need to insert a comma here if there's any ambiguity. Next we have nor. Now it's most commonly used with neither and nor. He is not my friend, nor, and we have to change the sentence here a little bit, nor is he my enemy. Next we have but. Again, a very common conjunction. It's used to suggest a contrast. Louis has lost his job. Get rid of the full stop. But he is still happy. We then move on to or, where it suggests a possibility of something else. You can swim in the lake. Get rid of the full stop. Or you can swim in the sea. Next we move on to yet. Now this is a little bit like nevertheless. Sometimes people use but there is a subtle difference. He has cancer. Get rid of the full stop. Yet he smokes 20 a day. Moving on to so. Again, this is a bit like therefore. It shows a result. The boy was wet through. Get rid of the full stop. So he needed a change of clothes. Now remember, these coordinating conjunctions can be remembered with the acronym FAMBOYS. But in order to join two simple sentences together, both sentences need to have their verb and subject and make sense. Now I've got a quiz here for you. Which pairs of these simple sentences can be joined by coordinating conjunctions or a coordinating conjunction? You may want to pause here and have a go. Okay then, so we've got two simple sentences that make sense by themselves and can be joined together with a coordinating conjunction. We have the sea was warm and the food was great. Although it was raining, it is the subject and was is the verb, was raining. However, this doesn't make sense. It's not a simple sentence, so therefore it cannot be joined with a coordinating conjunction to he went outside. So they cannot be joined with one of the fanboys. They needed to go to bed, yet they begged to stay up late. The essay was late, so he lost marks. In the garden, again, there is no verb or subject here, so this is not a simple sentence. It cannot be joined to I saw a red flower with a coordinating conjunction. You can have a pizza, comma, or you can have a curry. How did you get on? Lastly, what is a complex sentence? Well, actually, it's a main clause. Remember those independent clauses combined with one or more subordinate clauses. Remember those dependent clauses. Do you remember this? So you have two types of clauses. You've got your main clause, which has your subject and verb, and it's a complete thought. And you have a subordinate clause, which has a subject and verb. However, it does not make sense. It's dependent on the main clause for its meaning. However, when they're put together, you end up with a complex sentence, such as she went outside when the sun came out, and we can flip this subordinating conjunction to the front. Here it is. When the sun came out, comma, she went outside. These are complex sentences. Let's have a look at another example. The boy limped. The boy is the subject and limped is the verb. Because his leg hurt, the subject is his leg and the verb is hurt. However, this does not make sense. It's a fragment. So you need to put the subordinate clause with the main clause in order for it to make a complex sentence. Let's have a look. The boy limped because his leg hurt, and we can move this subordinating conjunction to the beginning. But if we do that, we do need to insert a comma here. And now it reads, because his leg hurt, comma, the boy limped. What did you notice about the complex sentences? That's right, there was a main clause and at least one subordinate clause, and they were joined together with a subordinating conjunction. The subordinating conjunction could be at the beginning, middle or end of your sentence, your complex sentence. Here's an example. Jared ate 3 bananas. You have a subject, you have a verb, and it's a complete thought. Therefore, it's your main clause. However, you've got 2 subordinate clauses here. You've got a subject and you've got a verb. However, when he came home from football is not a complete thought. You would say, what happened next? We'll have another subordinate clause. We have a subject and we have the verbs. However, if you said to me, because he was feeling hungry, that would make me question what you mean. However, we could rewrite the main clause with these 2 subordinate clauses to read, Jared ate 3 bananas when he came home from football because he was feeling hungry. And this complex sentence makes sense. We have your main clause with 2 supporting dependent clauses. You might ask, what other examples of subordinating conjunctions are there? Well, here is a grid with some commonly used subordinating conjunctions. Let's put some of these subordinating conjunctions into use. So let's make some complex sentences. Are you ready? So we have a dependent clause here. It doesn't make sense on its own. Although it was raining outside, there is a subject, there is a verb. However, it doesn't make sense. We need something else. Although it was raining outside, he took his dog for a walk. We could flip it and write, he took his dog for a walk, although it was raining outside. Note that with the conjunction although, we have kept the comma there to show the contrast. Second example, even though she lived in a flat, she wanted a pet. We could flip it. She wanted a pet, comma, even though she lived in a flat. We've kept the comma here to emphasize the contrast. Next sentence, while the sun shone brightly, that is your dependent clause. We need a main clause with a subject and verb. While the sun shone brightly, the children played outside. We could flip it and have the conjunction in the middle. The children played outside while the sun shone brightly. And there's your conjunction in the middle, and you do not need a comma there. Next example, whenever I visit London, that's your subordinate clause. I would like to change the colour here. I always stay at the Hilton. We can flip it. I always stay at the Hilton whenever I visit London. Again, here's your subordinate clause, and you don't need a comma as there's no pause or contrast there. And lastly, when you find the toy, that's your subordinate clause. You should store it away carefully. Flip it. You should store the toy away carefully when you find it. So we have to change the sentence a little bit to make sure the toy was mentioned at the beginning of the sentence. And again, we've got your subordinating conjunction there. No need for a comma as there is no contrast. Lastly, you can also use relative pronouns to start a type of subordinate clause. Now have a look at these sentences. What I'd like you to do is find the relative pronoun. What you might want to do is pause this video now and have a go at this activity. Okay, here are the answers. I have a friend, and that's your main clause. Whose child is very noisy is a type of subordinate clause, but it starts with a relative pronoun whose. He drove into that car is your main clause. That was parked on the corner is a type of subordinate clause using a relative pronoun that. Kieran gave some food to the dog. We could just put a full stop here and this would be a main clause. However, we've got this type of subordinate clause here which starts with a relative pronoun, who was waiting outside the chip shop. In this last example, we have the subordinate clause actually in the middle of the sentence, and when we do this we must insert these paired commas before and at the end of the subordinate clause. Just highlighting those for you. So the actual main clause is Sally decided to take an impromptu flight to Barcelona. We have a relative pronoun here, who was a newly qualified doctor, and that's your subordinate clause because we have the relative pronoun referring to Sally and the verb in was. Now I'll have an activity for you. Have a look at the following sentences and can you identify whether the sentence is a simple, compound or complex sentence. So at this point I'm going to show you the sentences and then we'll pause for the activity. Here are your 9 sentences. Take a few minutes to have a look at these and decide which ones are simple, compound or complex. You'd like to pause now. Okay, then let's have a look at the answers. We've got a subordinating conjunction here. We've got subject and verb, another subject and verb. This bit doesn't make sense on its own, and this bit does. Therefore, it's a complex sentence. I asked for tea. There's a subject and verb. I've got I was given coffee, a subject and verb. We've joined the two together with a coordinating conjunction, therefore this is a compound sentence. Question 3, we've got a subject and verb. She cried all night. We've got another subject and verb because she was sad. However, this doesn't make sense on its own. It needs the main clause. She cried all night to make sense, so therefore this is a complex sentence. Question 4, it was a beautiful hot summer's evening. It is the subject, was is the verb. There's only one subject, one verb. Therefore, it's a simple sentence. Question 5, Jack wanted a chat. Jack subject, wanted is a verb. So he rang his brother. He rang his brother is a subject and verb, joined together with one of these lovely little fanboys. Therefore, it's a compound sentence. Question 6, the children's chatter could be heard outside. The children's chatter is the subject, could be heard is your verb, and there's only one subject, one verb, therefore it's a simple sentence. Question 7, before the clock struck midnight is a dependent clause or subordinate clause. It doesn't make sense, however there is a subject and verb. She fled, there's your subject and verb, and this bit does make sense, that's the main clause, therefore it's a complex sentence. Question 8, I went swimming, although the water was choppy. I is the subject, went swimming is your verb, and the dependent clause is although the water is the subject, was is the verb. This is your complex sentence. Lastly, he crashed into the car, so he is the subject, crashed is the verb. That was parked in front of the house. That is a relative pronoun talking about the car. Was is your verb. So you've got a subject verb, including a relative pronoun. Therefore, it's a complex sentence. Thank you for watching Teaching English UK. Please remember to subscribe. Thank you.